birding memes of Reddit. When a heron does this, it's what's called a zoop. And for black-crowned night herons, going from their small, almost football-like shape to this can be shocking or startling to those who don't know the biology of this bird. But for even longer-necked species of herons, like this great blue heron, the zoop effect is actually insane to look at. Bloodcheep is a subreddit that's dedicated to the shocking appearance of the northern cardinal and a few other species of birds when they're molting their head feathers. While some species of birds will only lose large amounts of feathers like this when they're affected by mites or disease, some species will lose all their head feathers at once as a normal part of their molting process. And it makes for some pretty hilarious photos of cardinals in their various phases of molting. I've never personally seen one of these, and a lot of people are only able to photograph them from the cameras they have built in their bird feeders. And people will occasionally post photos of other species of birds who have this same kind of thing going on. It does appear to happen normally to blue jays as well. The eastern blue jay is a common backyard bird in the eastern United States that's largely known for its bright blue feathers and extremely loud call. Both the males and the females are this bright shade of blue that's caused by reflecting structures in their feathers, not actually a blue pigment. And they're related to the red jays of Europe, and they're also a member of the corvid family along with crows and ravens, despite looking quite different. Their extremely loud calls can even mimic the calls of a red-tailed hawk, making them sometimes despised by backyard bird feeder people because they scare away all the other birds. The European starling is probably one of the most hated birds in the United States. Along with the equally common house sparrows and rock pigeons, they are actually an invasive species from Europe. And they have both loud and varied calls where they can make all these kind of weird sounds when you're trying to listen to birds and you're like, what is that? And it's a starling. Backyard people tend to dislike them as well because they'll flock around in big groups and scare off all the other birds and basically decimate all the seed in bird feeders because they eat a ton. And they just don't really get the joy of seeing a bird outside of its native range like that. This one, someone ranked all the common North American birds and they put starlings in their own tier in the bottom. And even when someone else fixed it, they still left the starling down there. Gulls are notoriously difficult to identify, oftentimes something very specific being the difference between two different species. So a lot of birders, new and experienced, have an extreme difficulty actually IDing these guys. And those with the knowledge love to correct incorrect birders on Reddit as well. Some people decide to just give up on trying to learn to identify them, and we'll just call them a gull or a seagull and call it a day. But you still have that drive to try to learn how to identify them to flex on other birders though. There really is just so many different types, both in the US and Europe, that look super similar to each other. So people say it takes like max brain power to really learn these. I would say it's on par with being able to differentiate all the different leaf warblers in Europe and Asia. This is the blue-gray gnatcatcher, and it's known as the real-life angry bird because of its distinctive-looking eyebrow feather structure that it has. I've seen this drawing a few times. I think they even have like merch of it. And facing forward, it is a really striking appearance, but they're quite a cute bird nonetheless. And then some people compare them to Bert from Sesame Street. I saw my first blue-gray gnatcatcher when I was in the Grand Canyon earlier this year, and you can just barely see that little eyebrow. But yeah, they're definitely a favorite of mine. The subreddit you might think is called Super Bowl is actually Superb Owl, and it's the place to show off the best owl photos. I believe this one is a eastern screech owl. This one looks like a barred owl. Or some kind of pygmy owl. I don't know all the owl species. This one's really cute. Here's a snowy owl. This person was trying to mess with Google Images because a lot of Google Images are sourced from Reddit for some reason. And it's trying to get like Super Bowl quarterback to come up as this guy. Here's just a recent post, 2 barred owls. And people also share superb owl art as well. So the Merlin app is kind of an entry-level birding app where you can both create your list of bird sightings and locations, but it also tries to ID birds by sound or by photo. And it'll also give you little like daily challenges. But the usage of this app is quite the subject of a lot of jokes. One just for the normal use of it, like when you are using it to try to pick up bird songs and you're actually looking for birds, it picks up a bunch of starlings. You're leaving the spot you might have left the recording on and boom, all kinds of birds that you're trying to find. And when you get a new life bird, it gives you this very satisfying screen here. And it's quite a nice feeling. It does feel like collecting Pokemon on the app. But sometimes newcomers can kind of overuse it and misidentify bird reports. So when people who are more experienced see a rarer bird reported, they'll have to check to make sure it's not just kind of a random person misidentifying something using a sound. Sometimes it'll say that birds are rare or uncommon, but it's just because they're underreported in the area during that time of year. Sometimes its sound reception is absolutely terrible. This says like Merlin sound ID when the bird is screaming at you. Sometimes the academics on there write kind of funny or snarky descriptions of the birds. And sometimes the app will pick something up and just completely misidentify it. A very common one is a blue jay mimicking a red-tailed hawk, and it just picks it up as the hawk. But even this meme from China shows that people over there as well like this app and sometimes feel like they rely on it even as experienced birders. Sleepy Wrens is dedicated to Carolina wrens and other species of wrens that tend to find their way into people's porches and homes to take a good nap. And these guys love a little nook or corner to sleep in, but they're not incredibly good at hiding, so they're often sticking out like this. These two found a place to sleep in someone's hat that was just hanging up. And these two just in the corner stacked on one another. Here's two that are inside of a mop. And one sleeping inside of I believe this is a bird feeder with a camera on it. And another couple inside of a hat. I like how they consistently have this pose where they're just kind of sticking their tails out, because they have these really distinctive fan tails. Here's one, or rather two. They're kind of lumped together into one blob inside of a basket. But yeah, they look like just little fuzz balls. Really adorable. Here's one that woke up. And one inside of a little light socket or a outlet box. Let me know if you've ever seen a sleepy wren and what bird subreddit I should cover next. People in the eastern US often see these birds that look like a mix between a cardinal and a vulture, having normally full feathers but otherwise a bald head, giving it a very striking and unusual appearance. A couple years ago, this artist, Rosemary Moscow, created this comic explaining the differences between different types of cardinals. And this comic would be constantly posted on Reddit whenever somebody posted in a bird identification subreddit with one of these cardinals without the head feathers and saying, "What on earth is this bird?" And people would say, "Well, it's a Bloodcheep." So Bloodcheeps have their own subreddit, and I've noticed this past month there has been an abundance of non-cardinal birds showing up in this sub. For example, this is a Carolina wren. Here's another cardinal close up, and you can see that almost all of its head feathers have molted off and they'll grow back. This is a somewhat normal part of the molting process in some birds, but in others it can be a sign of mites or other health issues. This one is a red-winged blackbird, as well as a common grackle, and people were saying in the comments that this one probably does have some kind of mites going on. This is a wood pigeon and a red-bellied woodpecker. This is a jackdaw and another red-winged blackbird a little closer up. And finally a molting peafowl here. If you know a little bit more about birds than I do, let me know if there's a certain way to tell which kinds of birds this is a normal part of the molting process and which we should be a little more concerned, because I'm not exactly certain if you just have to know the species or if there's a easy way to tell.